Curious what you've seen from Turbo as a gunner.
Yeah, Turbo lives up to his nickname. The real speed. And the one thing that you see in practice as well is he has really good practice demeanor. So you see the very intentional and deliberate practice habits show up in the game. You see his ability to run by a vice, and he's a very willing and physical tackler. When those opportunities present itself. So excited to see Turbo whenever he gets those opportunities.
And one more. Why didn't Amir Smith-Marset, that's a mouthful, play the other night?
Yeah, so we're confident in Amir's ability. He's had a lot of tape out there, and really we just wanted to give other guys opportunity. We've been blessed with this roster of having a good amount of returners on this roster. A lot of guys in this league that have done it from the dual returner ability. So we're just going to continue to roll them through and see what some of these guys can do.
Thanks.
Yep.
Hey, Gobi. Good morning. How are you?
Hey, Art. How you doing, man?
Or good afternoon. Sorry.
Yep.
With it comes this time of year when everybody always starts looking at the roster and the 53, and all of a sudden questions start popping up. Well, can he play special teams? I would imagine from your perspective, you guys are a heck of a lot more calculated for months now when guys get in the building. I was just hoping maybe you could talk about that process a little bit, like how not only do you identify guys, but you're teaching guys that may not have that experience at this level, and just how it kind of takes on a life of its own, I would imagine, through training camp and then the preseason games.
Yeah, so it obviously starts off with a new league year, when you have those off-season meetings. I think your day-to-day with the players is teaching them your base fundamentals. So really early on, we have everybody in those meetings. We make certain that they understand everything that's required of them from a technique standpoint, from a scheme standpoint, and then we kind of roll that into training camp when we're back. So in those moments leading up to training camp, it's really just making sure everybody has a base understanding of what we do, whether you're a rookie, a veteran. The nature of this league is the roster sizes are small on game day. So you have to create a lot of flex with players. You have to create some emergency roster positions where if a guy goes down, you got to make sure this guy understands what he's doing in that role. And I think this whole roster has done that. And they've kind of bought into it too. Just anything that they're asked to do, they've done it a million miles per hour. So when we rolled in training camp, it was now a little bit more live bullets, right? They're executing these techniques, these schemes at a little faster pace. And for the rookies, that truly is the opportunity where they start to learn by fire. They're learning going against veterans that have been doing it, and that's ultimately accelerates their growth mentally and physically as well. They're understanding the speed of the game, the different rule changes with kickoff return from what they were doing in college. And then ultimately in the game, it's opportunities to show us that they've gained that knowledge and have been able to, produce on the football field in that regard. So, it is a long and thorough process. And the guys have done a great job just in understanding the steps and kind of owning that.
Appreciate that. I would just one more on what Dan said about Turbo. It's funny, all the physical skills, but I got to imagine that at some point there's an intricacy involved in the job of a gunner that maybe we don't see, but until you do it, how do guys pick that up? We're not, sometimes I guess you have to be natural, right? But also you probably hit it a lot in the classroom, I would think, for a guy like that who wants to use his speed, but maybe it's a little bit more than that.
Yeah. The one thing that we try and do with any position is relate it to what they do from their primary position. So in terms of what Turbo does a great job as a running back, we try and correlate what he did there and see how we can simulate it with his gunner stuff. So like for any offensive player, it's ability to get off press. Now, when you're talking about gunner play, it's gunner versus a vice. So gunner versus two people. So now you have press versus two people. What are the fundamentals that you have done whenever you're running a route on offense? Like how do you get open, right? It starts with the decisive speed release. So, that's one thing that he's kind of learned. And, when he's doing these drills in practice, you're not necessarily going to have 45 to 50 yard covers on these punts every play. So it's breaking down a certain aspect of the gunner play, whether it's releases. And then you go into another aspect of gunner play, which is the in-phase running down the field. And then you go into the third and final, which is the tackling and play entry phase. So breaking it down kind of in those molds allow those guys to kind of transition if they've never had gunner reps there before. But, we try and do our best job in terms of like translating the what they do from a primary positional standpoint to what they do on special teams.
Well, appreciate the insight. Thank you.
You got it.
Brian Dunleavy.
Hey, Gobi, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. Two things. One, do you have any takeaways from the first two games of the new kickoff rule, either with you guys or watching tape around the league or text with other coordinators? Like, what's been your impressions of the revised rule here in year two?
Yeah, so, really the biggest rule difference from last year has been where the touchback is now spotted. And because there's been a lot more footballs in play, you haven't necessarily felt what a 35-yard line drive start would feel like throughout the entirety of the game. The one thing I will say, though, is, we've hit a touchback, whether it be a yard deep, 2 yards deep, there has been a touchback where it was spotted on the 35, and you just feel what that does to the defense. Now that, especially with how skilled these kickers are these days, they get a first down, and then let's say they go 3 and out after that, a kicker may be in field goal range now, so you're definitely feeling the consequences of consistently kicking touchbacks, which may translate more to more kicks in play this year.
And then as good as he's been for as long as he's been, was there exhale when you see your 38-year-old kicker coming off injuries drill 3 50-yarders in a preseason game? It was like, all right, we don't need to see you again for training camp.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a breath of fresh air when you see a guy perform at what he can do. And that was something that we saw, honestly, in training camp and in the offseason. It's like, okay, Graham is kicking well. He looks like he's got his leg and all that. But ultimately, we're a production-based business. So when you do it in the game, you're like, okay, yeah, that's Graham Gano. And I know that gave him confidence, and that obviously, we've always been confident with him. And that's a guy that we're fired up to see have success.
Thanks, Gobi.
Yep.
We have time for one more if there is one. Dan Duggan.
Hey, I'll just jump back. What have you seen from Beaux Collins on specials?
Yeah. Beaux is, first of all, the person is built the right way. He wants to do everything right. And you could tell he's a football player. So I think instinctual, I think he's tough. I think he's a strong player. And obviously has that long speed. So, those are all things that, can contribute to him being a good special teams player. We certainly want to continue to see him, in those roles. But in terms of the person, he's just bought in completely to, being the best football player he can be and doing whatever it takes to help this football team. So it's cool to see that kid have success, and I know he's going to be driven to keep going.